I've seen Bristol races where the leader has been wrecked by a lap car, where the leaders have wrecked themselves. I've seen late race chaos. I've seen Kyle Busch go from back to front to back to front to back to front in a single race. This one today, crazier than all of those. All those that I just listed that I've watched over my 14 years of watching NASCAR today. Top tier craziness, top tier, whatever you want to call it. It was insane, but it was beautiful. It really was. Bristol, for the first time since 2020, had a spring date on the concrete surface. First time since 2019 that a race was on the concrete surface before May. And boy, did it provide some great racing. The crowd looked decent today. You know, the crowd had struggled in the Bristol Spring Race prior to it being put on dirt. The dirt experiment ran for 3 years, but ultimately they came back to the concrete surface. And today, oh my goodness, something in the chemicals was happening. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a tire expert. I'm not an engineer, so I have no idea what was going on. But there's, people guessing what's happening. They usually put down, PS1, PJ1 or something on the bottom groove to make it stickier so the drivers can have grip and actually run that low line so you can have multiple lanes. And so you can also run the top as the normal, the bottom as the secondary. Well, I think they put resin down or something this morning. And, well, let's just say it ate the tires like a potato chip. And, well, we saw some of the shortest tire runs we've probably ever seen in Bristol. At least in the modern era, at least in as long as I've been watching, which I said, is a little bit over a decade. And it was just utter chaos. Just look at some of these pictures. Look at some of these pictures of the tires after 50 lap runs. Sometimes even less than 50 laps. They'd run 30 laps, 40 laps, 25 laps, and the tires would be done. The teams today got their absolute most, the most potential out of their money's worth that they paid for those Goodyear tires. They got every bit of it. In fact, Goodyear had to go give each and every team, or the teams had to come pick up, an extra set of tires today because they were dying so quickly. Now, we've seen instances like this in the past where it's been a crapshoot. 2008 Indianapolis, 2022 Texas, where we've seen it and it ultimately has become a bad thing because people are wrecking out of the lead. It's high speeds at Texas and Indianapolis. So when someone blows the tires, it is catastrophic damages to these cars. And in the Texas case, caused a concussion with Alex Bowman. But in this case, tires were not blowing out. Tires were not exploding. Cars were not crashing. But we saw tires go flat. We saw a lot of cording. We saw every which way tires could go down without actually killing the car, without actually popping and spinning people out. We did see it maybe once or twice with Kyle Busch and someone else, I can't remember. But that is what made today so fun. We may never see a race like this again. Like, the amount of chaos that happened without there being wrecks, without sparks flying, without there being punches thrown, that I know of. I might need to check. But the amount of chaos and, I don't want to say stupidity, but a fun stupidity that happened today, we may never get again. They talked to the Goodyear director or the Goodyear NASCAR, whoever talks for them, during the race, and he had said something like, we may not bring this compound back if we're going to do it on the resin or whatever. We need to run some tests, blah, blah, blah. But basically, this is a little bit too close to the line for us. This is really risky. It's going to start wrecking cars, and that is when it's a bad reflection on Goodyear, like in 2008 at Indianapolis, in 2022 at Texas, when everyone kind of turned on Goodyear, the fans, the teams, everyone was like, Goodyear, what is this crap you brought us? Whereas today, as a fan, I loved it, and I thank Goodyear for what they brought today because it provided some great racing. It provided great racing because we had the most lead changes in Bristol history. We had the most lead changes in short track history. It's like the first time or second time or not a lot of times in history that a track that's not a super speedway has seen over 50 lead changes. I think the final number was 54. More than 15 drivers led laps today. And you could say, oh, it's like Daytona and Talladega. You're letting people by, blah, blah, blah. But no, This is racing. You're conserving tires. Conserving tires is a part of racing. Some guys are going to push harder at different times, whereas other guys are going to be conserving at certain times. And that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it interesting. Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. at the end of this race, they were 7 seconds ahead of Brad Keselowski. And normally you're like, oh, what a snoozer, a JGR domination fest, and they're 7 seconds ahead of everyone else. No, I was sitting there the last 10 laps like, which one of these guys pushed too hard and is about to lose a tire and lose the win because of it? Well, ultimately, neither of them did. But I was sitting there on the edge of my seat like, which one of them is going to lose a tire? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? It didn't happen. Denny Hamlin won the race. It was his second straight win at the Bristol concrete venue. He won the night race back in the fall. He wins today. By the way, his car kind of looks like a baseball. The way the red tire marks go over the white, it makes me think of a baseball. Just me? I know. I don't know. But it was chaos here on St. Patrick's Day. I am wearing green, so don't yell at me, I guess. But let's look at the results of this race. Denny Hamlin, your winner, as I mentioned, his first win of 2024. And the points, he won the Busch Clash back in February. That is a non-points paying event. So these short tracks he's actually doing pretty good at. Won at the Coliseum, led a bunch of laps at Phoenix, won at Bristol, and that's huge because remember, the championship is at Phoenix, and here come the Denny Hamlin championship jokes in the comments. I can see it now. Anyways, but for real, big win for Denny Hamlin. Did a great job conserving his tires today. It was domination by Joe Gibbs Racing. Hamlin probably led over 150 laps. Truex led 50 or so laps. Ty Gibbs led over 150 laps and swept the stages. Christopher Bell led a good chunk of laps. I can't remember the number, sorry. But it was chaos, and Denny Hamlin managed the chaos perfectly. He managed his tires perfectly, and he did just enough that he could do a burnout at the end. But Denny Hamlin's your winner. Now let's talk about the rest of the lead lap cars. That is positions 2 through 5. That's right, only 5 cars finished on the lead lap in this race. Normally, if you tell someone that, they assume that it's a Richmond race that had no cautions. Nope. It was a Bristol race that had a few cautions and a lot of tire chaos. Martin Truex Jr. finished second. His best Bristol finish, I think they said, since 2011 when he was with Michael Waltrip Racing in the 56 car. He's been good at short tracks, but Bristol has never been his thing, as you can tell from the number I just gave you. But Martin Truex Jr. did a great job today, just like Hamlin, a veteran. These top 3, all veterans, all managed their tires great despite everyone else losing their tires. Somehow that last green flag pit stop, no one wrecked. I really thought it was going to happen. You know, Truex and Hamlin trying to last, trying to make it as long as they can because everyone else is pitting. Everyone else is their tires are dying. But these 3, they managed it perfectly. And then the whole field, shout out to the whole field for not wrecking, doing a dumb caution, just completely jacking up the field or something. But Martin Truex Jr., a strong second place finish. Third place, Brad Keselowski. He's been great at Bristol. And once again, a great result for him at Bristol. He's got a few wins at this track, but ultimately finishes third. Really good job for him. He's had a rough start to the season, so great for him to get a top 5. Fourth place, Alex Bowman. He led a couple laps in that pit cycle. He was running kind of like 12th to 16th, I think, for a good chunk of the day. No one really sat in one portion of the field for the majority of the day except for the Gibbs guys. The Gibbs cars led the majority of the laps in this race. They were in the top 5 for the majority of the race. Everyone else was either top 5, top 10, but then at other times they'd be like 23rd, 18th. Like everyone was everywhere, and it was chaotic. I gotta admit, it was hard to keep up with sometimes, but that is a good thing in this scenario. It was genuinely hard to keep up with where everyone was and just all the chaos that was happening. So there's going to be a lot of things that I missed that you're going to have to remind me of tomorrow night when we do our weekly live stream where we basically talk about what I forgot to mention. So make sure to tune in to that too. Kyle Larson finishes 5th, his second top 5 of the year. Good race for him. He led some laps. That's all I got on him. 6th place, John Hunter Nemechek. First car, 1 lap down, by the way. He was in the top 10 for a majority of the race, I think. He was up even contending for the lead at times. His best finish with Legacy Motor Club so far, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there. He might have finished top 5 in the Daytona 500, but I don't think so. But a 6th place finish for John Hunter Nemechek. What a day for him. Half the top 10 was Toyota. 7th place, Chris Buescher led some laps there. Started at the back of the field, qualified 34th or something. but ends up with the top 10 to both RFK cars in the top 7. Chase Elliott finally gets his first top 10 of the year. Led a couple laps early, had some electrical issues, but ultimately the problem got solved. Had race leading speed, but ultimately, as I said, with a lot of the field today, just went back and forth, back and forth. Ultimately, Elliott comes out 8th. 9th place, Ty Gibbs. Man, it seemed like this was going to be the day that it was going to be his first career win. He led almost 150 laps, as I said earlier. He swept the stages. He seemed to have the best car, but that last pit stop, they ran a little bit too long, ran on those flats a little bit too much, and had to pit. And they might have had to pit a second time. I can't remember. But ultimately, they end up 9th. It's tough because that is a good result. It's his 3rd or 4th straight top 10. But, man, you got to wonder what could have been. Ty Gibbs, I think he could have won this race if it was a little bit more normal with the tires. But that's not how it goes. And ultimately, Ty Gibbs does not get his first career win. But he does have a top 10. And, man, I'm telling you, he's going to have a big year. 2 straight weeks of leading a lot of laps. More stages won. And he's got a good car under him. He's been doing good so far this year. Christopher Bell finishes 10th, meaning all 4 JGR cars are in the top 10. 11th place, Michael McDowell. 12th place, Josh Berry. Led 25 laps early in this race, took the lead, ran away for a few laps, as I said. Pitted a few times, hit the wall quite a few times, but finishes 12th. A really good result for him. Chase Briscoe, 13th. Ryan Preece, 14th. You see some SHR guys there. 15th, Ross Chastain had to start at the back of the field. Ryan Blaney, 16th. He was running up front early in this race, but fell back, then came back forward, then fell back again. It's the story for a lot of these guys. 17th, Justin Haley was legit in the top 10 this race. Both Rick Ware Racing cars were in the top 10, and not during a pit cycle during this race. That's how chaotic it was. Ultimately, though, something happened with Haley there at the end. He falls back to 17th. 18th, Suarez. 19th, Kaz Grala was up to like 6th at one point. I mean, this race had everything. I'm telling you. 20th, Eric Jones. 21st, Corey LaJoie. 22nd, Joey Logano. 23rd, AJ Allmendinger. 24th, Austin Dillon. 25th, Kyle Busch. Looked to have the best car early in this race. Ran up from like 16th to 2nd in the span of just a few laps. Led a few laps. Spun a few times. 25th. 26th, Todd Gilliland. 27th, Carson Hocevar. 28th, Daniel Hemrick. 29th, Bubba Wallace. Led some laps early in this race. Tire issues, I'm assuming. Finishes 29th, multiple laps down. 30th, Tyler Reddick. Probably the worst pit call of the day was when they opted to stay out on like lap 25 due to a caution. And no one knew at the time that the tires were going to be completely dead. But Reddick's team really didn't know. They tried to stay out. Everyone had fresh tires, ran over Reddick. He wrecked 2 laps later, and ultimately he finishes 30th. 31st, Austin Cindric. 32nd, Harrison Burton. 33rd, Ricky Stenhouse. 34th, Noah Gragson. 35th, William Byron. Tough luck early. Gets put in a 3-wide situation, gets tapped, smacks the wall, breaks a toe link, has to pit under green, goes a few laps down, and he never recovered. He moved up 1 spot since that. So today was basically a waste of the day for him. But then last was Zane Smith. Got involved in that Tyler Reddick wreck and had some ARCA brake moment and just rammed Reddick, and then he was done. Well, he wrecked a couple more times later. It's been a horrific rookie season for Zane Smith. But, you know, it is how it goes sometimes. But what a race, man. I enjoyed it. I really did. All the chaos, all the tire shenanigans. Usually when tires are the problem or causing a bunch of issues, I'm against it because, you know, usually the situation, as I said earlier, is the tires are blowing out. The tires are exploding. But today, the tires were wearing. The tires were causing drivers to manage, to slow down, to make sure that they can make the tires last a little bit longer versus, you know, they're just popping at random. So that made it much more fun. It's been a crazy season so far. The Daytona 500 was great. Had a little bit of a controversial finish with the caution being thrown. But then Atlanta, an all-time classic finish, a great race. Vegas was a great race. Phoenix was Phoenix. And then today was a record-breaking day at Bristol. And man, what a race. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you enjoyed it too. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We got COTA coming up next week, a road course. I'm curious to see how that one is going to go. But any other news that comes out this week, I will let you know. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys in the next video or live stream tomorrow night, whatever comes first.